Welcome to Body Energetics, evidence-based spirituality to get happy, healthy, and hot. I'm your host, Lauren Saracione, and I've been in fitness for over 22 years. I've also had 3 major healing events where I learned something new and deeper about the mind-body connection. It is my mission to help you get happy, healthy, and hot. So whether you're here for mindset work to get happy, emotional work to get healthy, or owning your desires and who you be to get hot, Body Energetics is for you. Before we get started on today's podcast, I wanted to invite you to make love to food and dieting. This is our first masterclass of the year. It's January 18th at 6 p.m. Pacific time. I'm going to teach you what the patterns are of the attachment styles and how they're showing up in your diet and food, and then the why behind it. Once you know the pattern and the why behind it, you get to be your lover and you get to fill in the gaps that you are using food to do for you. So no more emotional regulation with food. And this is going to help you stick with your diet, which is so important. The consistency is so important to burn fat and get you into your dream body. Go to bodyenergetics.com/secure to sign up. Welcome to episode number 2 of Body Energetics podcast. This episode is all about the divided mind, the epidemic of mind-body disorders. This is from Dr. John Sarno, and I came across his work in 2017 when I had a disc slide up and under the one above it in my neck, and they both herniated, they both tore. And I was avoiding surgery. I had taken 4 months to heal. I thought that in 4 months' time of not being on my phone, pausing the podcast that I had at the time called Love is a Verb, that I was going to heal in 4 months, that all the neck problems were going to go away. Well, 4 months came and went, and I posted on Facebook that I was going to have surgery. I was like, guys, it looks like it didn't work. I'm going to have surgery. And somebody commented, I don't remember who this person was. If this was you, please message me, said, before you have surgery, read The Divided Mind. And the reason why this person had said this was because research from Dr. John Sarno has shown that people who have pain, especially in the back, when you have a surgery, the pain might go away in that area, but then the pain shows up in another area. The pain just kind of bounces around from different body parts. You never escape it. And I thought, well, fuck, like I'm not going to put myself through surgery if I don't know if it's going to go well, or if I don't know that like the outcome of being pain-free is going to happen. Like, why would I do that to myself? Right? The risk didn't seem worth the reward because it didn't really seem like there was a reward. So I started reading the book, and this is where I learned about the inner child primitive. And he explains that the inner child primitive is what causes the disconnect between the mind body. So in this book, it's so fascinating. Half of the book is explaining the history in the medical industry of how psychosomatic thoughts and feelings was really eliminated and was a big stigma for people. Like it was a big deal, like in the 50s to go to therapy. Like there was something really abnormal with you if you went to therapy. Now, of course, we've got apps that are therapy. And he sets the pace to say like, hey, in the medical industry, if you weren't having surgery or you weren't getting a prescription, you didn't get to know that your thoughts and feelings, your emotional stress, and the way you thought about the world and how you saw yourself impacted your physical health. So the first half is, this is how we got so far removed from understanding the mind-body system. And the second half is him explaining what the outcome is of the breakdown of a disconnected mind body, and then case study after case study after case study of his patients who reversed all different types of illnesses and injuries. And he says, unless you have torn tissue or a missing gene, you can attribute all of the problems in your body to being mental emotional. They call it psychosomatic. Somatic is body, psycho is mental emotional. Your emotional brain, like your emotions aren't your heart. And I think like a lot of the spirituality stuff will just talk about the heart. but your emotional brain is the subconscious mind. It's secreting molecules of emotion and it's generating a signal that creates your reality and outpictures what your self-image is. Who you think you are is shown to you by your surroundings. So in this book, I'm like, okay, I got to figure this out because I can't have surgery. And when he goes into the outcome of why we have these physical problems, what he says is the brain, the subconscious mind is preventing conscious awareness of your feelings. So if you're encountering emotional stress, like in real life with whatever's going on in your now moment, or you're about to find a suppressed emotion, maybe something really awful happened to you that you suppressed the memory, but because it still exists, because it hasn't been processed, because you haven't done forgiveness work, because you haven't extracted any wisdom from it, it's still active energetically and chemically in that subconscious mind with how the emotions are creating your body, your reality, and how the molecules of emotion are secreting from your brain. It's still active. So part of what he says is when you are going to be consciously aware of a repressed emotion, a repressed trauma, that's when your subconscious mind that controls oxygen to your body will cut off just a little bit of oxygen, just enough to exhibit pain in different parts of your body. And he says the parts of your body that usually have the pain are parts that you remember getting hurt. An old back injury is going to act up when you've got a deadline at work. Your body knows where to cut off a little bit of oxygen to direct your focus to the body part, the body pain versus the mental emotional pain. So if you're stressed, this is why the body doesn't feel good, because there's oxygen depletion to help you take your focus off of the mental stress. And then it's also the reason why if something's about to surface that's going to be too traumatic for you to deal with, it might be life altering. If you remember something really awful that happened to you, the brain cuts off a little bit of oxygen to prevent you from remembering that thing. That's how deep the work is. And he has examples of some people that release some really big, major emotional events that happened to them. Sexual abuse in particular is a big one, where a woman had fibromyalgia and she finally remembered being sexually assaulted. And when she did, she fell to the floor in tears, cried and cried and cried and cried, but then the pain went away. It got released. So there's very extreme scenarios with this, but there's also lighter stuff that I'll be referencing in Emotion Code in a couple more episodes. So it doesn't have to be all huge traumatizing events. It could be little things that just get stuck in our body. And I'll explain to you how they get stuck in your body on the Emotion Code episode. So here I am in pain. It's 4 months after I find out what my neck diagnosis is. I don't want to have surgery. I find out that there's inner child primitive, and the inner child primitive has to do with infancy of not being cared for, love and affection, being fed, and having a clean diaper. He says those are basically the things for an infant to get angry about. And if those needs aren't getting met, the body has all the ailments of those repressed emotions. The negative degenerative molecules of emotion are constantly secreting. The oxygen depletion happens. We have all these illnesses. We become type A overachievers. And that type A overachiever mindset that we develop from that is because we're trying to do everything to be seen, to be approved of, to be loved. Because if you think about it as a baby, you're crying to get your needs met. And if your needs aren't being met, your vocal crying is the only thing that you have to perform to be seen. But as we get older, we create a context of crying and you got to interchange the word crying with being seen. We create all different ways to perform, to be seen, to get those needs met, to get the physical need met as well as the emotional need met. So as we get older, you could just, like take a trip down memory lane of different ages of kindergarten, third grade, fifth grade, middle school, junior high, high school. There's all these things that we do because on the deep level, we're doing the things to get the validation so that we can actually feel love. Because if we're not doing these things as an overachiever or as an overachiever or a perfectionist, a type A, if we're not doing those things, we don't have any sense of figuring out if we're lovable or not because of this inner child primitive. So when I started to learn this, I could really see how much in my life I was doing for performance. And there's things that, as we get into episodes and we talk about human design, things will make so much sense when you're suffering in your body or you're suffering with depression and anxiety. When you see how the stuff works within the physical development of the body, and then who you are as a spirit in your human design of what kind of, closed centers or open centers, or where you have Mercury or where you have Mars or Saturn or whatever it is, things will make so much more sense of why your body exhibits pain, or you can never get it into the shape that you want, when you can really start to see how the body forms from these early stages of life, and also who you are energetically and spiritually, that like you kind of needed these shitty things to happen if you were going to have the growth experience of your soul. The divided mind also, for me, helped me understand the fear mindset. And this was a big one, because when I understood the fear mindset, I was able to change my relationships with people. And that was really important to me because I have not really felt super connected. I always kind of feel a bit alone. And so this really changed things for me. So I want to share this with you before we end this episode. Is the divided mind, if we go into a more spiritual sense of love, okay? Love is resonance together. Love is that you are in resonance with a thing. There's a connection to it. There's not a repulsion. And if you look up what God is in the dictionary, it says the ultimate and supreme reality. There is nothing without God. There is nothing without the ultimate and supreme reality. If you take pictures of rocks and leaves, they will have an energetic signature. There is black tar on rocks in the desert, and it moves. It has a consciousness. Everything has a consciousness to it. On the biggest level, that means that everything is consciousness and everything is just vibrating at a different rate. So we don't blend into everything. But these streamers back here behind me are conscious. You got to get deep into quantum physics to like really go there, but just take my word for it right now. Everything's connected. So when I looked at the divided mind, I'm like, okay, we have the conscious mind where we can say, I'm aware of this. I know my pattern. I know my bullshit. I know I have a hard time with such and such, whatever. Then we have the subconscious mind where we just automatic. We wake up, we check our phone, we go to the bathroom, we brush our teeth, we brew the cup of coffee. We are on subconscious autopilot with certain things that we do. You know how to drive to the mall. You don't really have to think about it. You know how to get there. That's a subconscious pattern for you at this point. You don't need a map to get to the mall. Then the unconscious mind, which is like the base operating system. This is your iOS device. So you want to have a fast operating system, you pay for your gigabytes or whatever it is that you call them, right? Your unconscious mind is the seat of the soul. It's who you be. And who you be is subject to your environment and your perception of your environment. But who you be never changes. You change who you be. So we got the basis, then we got the patterns, then we have the awareness. So the divided mind, I'm like, the divided mind, divided mind. Divided means not love, because love is in resonance. Love is God, is the ultimate and supreme reality. So I'm looking at these words and I'm looking at what they mean. And I'm like, well, the opposite of love is indifference, right? The Taylor Swift song, whatever that song that she sings about Kanye, that she says she doesn't hate him. She's just indifferent. Like indifference is worse than hate, because hate, you still have like a hurt. There's still an emotional connection, but indifference, you're like, take it or leave it. I don't care what happens to you. That's worse. But I'm like, fear. Everybody talks about love and fear being opposites. But I know that's not true, but there's still relevance to it. So I'm like, okay. So the fear mindset is what causes the separation. What are we afraid of? We're afraid of being separate from the ultimate and supreme reality. If in all the universe there was an ultimate and supreme reality, and somehow right, this is my inner work, got it in my head that I was separate from that, of course I have a fear mentality. Of course I feel frightened of being alone, separate from the infinite field of love. Like, okay. Inner child primitive and the fear mindset. I'm afraid of being separate from love. I just kept going down this rabbit hole. And I had a meditation and I was surrounded by black. And I was sitting on my little pedestal in my mind's eye in my meditation. I have this cute little gold pedestal that has pink cushion on it. And I saw a translucent version of my body lift out of the tangible, non-see-through body. And I saw it lift up and I'm like, oh, I got it. So we get born, we become earthside, where we are disconnected from our light body that we're going to talk about in another episode. And we spend all of our life getting attached to the physical body and what it means about us, if we're fat, if we've got cellulite, if it's not the cultural beauty standard. We have all this attachment to the physical body until it's our time to return to source, to where there is no physical delineation between me and anything else. I just get to be with source again. And then we at death, the death experience, we get afraid to be separate from our body. Where when this all got started, we were afraid of being separate from source when we got the human body. Now, again, this is for someone who had deep depression and anxiety. So I'm scaling myself all the way back to, I must have been really fearful when I was born. This is why I took it this far, because I had such chronic pain and problems and was very unhappy. So I scaled it all the way back to say, I must have been terrified to be separate from source. And then the flip side is we get terrified to be separate from our body, to return to source. So I start thinking about that and I'm like, man, what a trip to have the experience of life, to get a human body, to create whatever it is that we want to create. And it becomes terrifying. So I'm thinking about this and really, trying to figure this out. And with the divided mind and Dr. John Sarno talking about inner child primitive, then the word primitive started really sticking out to me. And I was like, well, primitive is that reptilian fight, flight, freeze, fawn portion of our brain where we're going to do whatever we need to do to stay alive. That's the primitive mind, survival. So I'm like, okay, divide, mind, body, love, God, our physical body, source, the physical plane, primitive mindset, inner child primitive mindset, primitive mindset. I'm like, holy shit. The inner child primitive is primitive in the sense of taking us back to the most rudimentary mindset. Not necessarily the age that we got it, like what he says of 0 to 3, but the level of intelligence that it had, that it was primitive survival. So I'm like, when did I experience a life and death situation? Ding, 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 ding. My mom hates that I tell this story, but I have to tell the story because it's life-changing. When it happened and when I realized what it was, that she had a stalker when I was 9 years old. And there was a lot of bad stuff that happened during that time. And I realized, after contemplating all this stuff that I just shared with you, that it felt like the mindset, the primitive fear mindset that caused the division in the mind body was like a film. Like you see how these lights kind of have this film to them when I'm waving my finger, like that. Like there was a film over my eyes on my insides that caused me to perceive the world as I need to strike first. I need to break down the relationship first before they leave me. I need to sabotage it in some way to have to fix it. Like fixing things is a big thing for me. So I would create problems to then work on the solution. I just expected that everybody hated me and that everybody was out to get me. When I really thought, like, when this film became so visible to me and I thought about what it was that I felt everybody was out to get me and everybody hated me. And I was like, that's my primitive fear mindset, because I took it back again to separation. The fear mindset causes us to perceive separation between us and other people, between us and God. And people and God are so integral to our experience of feeling connected within ourselves. And we transfer this, that when we want to have that connection to a higher power and to that infinite, ultimate, supreme reality that God is, if you look up the definition of it, there is so many things that we do in this fear mindset to our physical body to try to escape the sensation of feeling separate. These are our addictions. We have sex with the wrong people, addictions with drugs, addictions with food, addictions with media, with our phones, addictions with shopping. And then when we look at the relationship with people, because a lot of the relationship with people, whether it's like platonic with like same sex, we could keep looking at ourselves of how we're not beautiful enough or fit enough like our counterpart, like our, same sex friends or cultural influencers. And then when we look at the connection of who we want to be sexually romantic with, or in that love relationship, we do things to the body and we perceive that we can't have that deep connection with somebody because of the shape of our body. So when I started to see these concepts as a larger theme, like the divided mind also had to do with separation from source, separation from our body, separation from love. And when I started to look at what that fear mindset really was on the primal level for me and what I made that primitive intelligence mean in relation to people and to the world, then I was like, oh, now I can change this. Because again, with evidence, like when it occurred to me to look up on the internet of what the definition of God was, because I was like, well, what is that actually? Like, what's the agreed upon definition of God? And I'm like, the ultimate and supreme reality. That's perfect. And love is connection. So I want to feel connected to that. I don't want to feel separate. And that initial separate feeling that there is this exquisite energy, life force energy that is in everything It is quantifiable. Life force energy is in everything. Everything is energetic. How can I ever get it in my head that I am separate from that? And the moment that I felt the separateness is the moment that I judged myself, and every negative feeling that came from feeling separate, all the meanings that I ever created about myself because of negative experiences that I hadn't processed yet were like all in the forefront. Then I could actually start to work with these things. And it didn't happen overnight. Like I took my time, like going through different themes, and clearly I'm going to share those themes with you as the podcast goes on. But this divided mind, this really set a huge context for the self-healing process and how to create the unification, unity consciousness. If you're awake, unity consciousness, Christ consciousness, like these are all bodies, body stuff. Christ is oil that's in your body. There is a book that's not listed here because I haven't finished reading it, but there's another book that goes through that. The Old Testament is about the cosmos, or allegories about the planets, and the New Testament is allegories about the bodies. I didn't mention it yet because I haven't read the book fully yet to really get into it. But everything is about this connection to this infinite wisdom, infinite source energy. So the divided mind is an integral part of this for me. And if this, rings true for you, if you find it interesting, I would definitely look up Dr. John Sarno and the divided mind, and you can look up information about him. But inner child primitive, we become type A, overachievers, perfectionist, or we're dealing with a whole bunch of body stuff. And it's all the subconscious mind's doing to prevent our conscious mind, our awareness of something painful. So our body gives us physical pain instead of emotional pain to deal with. Whew. Okay, so that is your divided mind episode of the evidence series. And I want to remind you, if you haven't done so yet, go to bodyenergetics.com or go to bodyenergetics.com so that you can sign up for my newsletter, so that you can get the episodes delivered to your inbox so that you always have them, that you will get invited to our community call that we have once a month. Go to our community, facebook.com/groups/bodyenergetics, and tag me when you listen to the episodes, because you will get entered into winning my wonderful, cute water bottle with Aurora. This is Aurora. She is part of my spiritual connection. She's also my tattoo, and she is carrying the heart chakra. And then you also have this really cute mug that's black on the inside, white on the outside, and has really cool swirly lights around the name Body Energetics. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Here is to being happy, healthy, and hot. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you found it helpful, please head over and give us a 5-star rating and leave a review for how this was helpful for you. This is going to help me spread the word faster into more people who need this information to self-heal. Join us at facebook.com/group/bodyenergetics, where we have discussions about the episodes. Go to bodyenergetics.com so that you can sign up for my newsletter to make sure that you never miss an episode. And that's the place that you're going to get invited to our Zoom discussion that we have every single month. Tag us on social media, Body Energetics, and we will reshare your tag and enter you into our monthly drawing to win our really cute water bottle or our really cool mug.